Hello and welcome to Kids of Stuff, a Chucky Podcast, a HauntedMTL original podcast. I'm your host, David Davis, and my guest this week is my fellow HauntedMTL contributor, JM Brannyk.
Hey.
How you doing, JM?
I'm doing. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm glad to have a guest on this week. The last couple episodes has been my wife, and it's been great, but also, I want to bring other people on.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Of course. I do want to do a quick shout out to the Chucky Vision Podcast. We've been kind of going back and forth on Twitter talking about stuff. It's been a lot of fun. They're listening to my podcast. I'm listening to theirs. The Chucky community is great. So if you get a chance, look up the Chucky Vision Podcast on Spotify. Now, today we are going to be talking about the latest episode of the Chucky TV show. So, let's see. I'm going to just refer to you as Brannyk. So, Brannyk.
Yes.
Introduce yourself, please. yes. Bueller, anyone?
Present. Yeah. I'm a writer for HauntedMTL, and also Nightmarish Conjurings. I also do podcasts for HauntedMTL. I'm on the Throwdown with Voodoo Priestess, and I do...
I was on that one recently.
You were on Streamin' Demons.
Streamin' Demons, okay, yeah. Shit, I need to get these facts right then.
Streamin' Demons, where we could not hear you.
Yeah, that was a very interesting experience. I described it as being like a ghost.
You were like a ghost, because Jim had to conjure you, and
channel me.
I think half of what he said was bullshit.
Oh, totally it was.
So I will have to go back and listen to it because I'm like, I don't think that's what Dave said, but I have no proof of it, so I guess that's true then. But yeah, that was interesting. I do sometimes go on Streamin' Demons. Throwdown is with Evie, where we battle to see who wins. One of us will pick a movie that we like, the other one hates it, and then we battle to the death on air. Every week. Well, that week, was a fun one. Every time we battle to the death. And then Club Misery I do with Audrey 3, which is an LGBTQ plus with, horror in there, because of course. And then Combo Box, which is sleeping right now. Shh, everybody. But it will wake, and it will, destroy the world when it wakes. Mm-hmm. And I've also contributed on GaylyDreadful.com when they have their gayathons. I forget what the fancy word is, but basically gayathons to promote things like trans awareness and Trevor Project and whatnot, and to contribute to those. And those are every year, so please go check them out. Give money to whatever charitable donation they're going to be giving to, and read some really cool queer stuff.
That is excellent. Yeah, no, I really appreciate you being on here, because I haven't really had I want to try to diversify the perspectives a little bit here on the podcast. So, it's nice to have, someone else to talk to and everything like that. And I appreciate the volume of work that you've done as well.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I am only but one queer in a circle of many. So, of course, what I say is just what I'm saying, but, I can't speak for everybody, and nor should I. But, people, listen to really cool podcasts. Brother Ghoulish has a really cool queer podcast, and just other stuff like that. Like, they're out there, they're fun. Definitely part of the gay agenda, which is making cool shit like Chucky.
I love the gay agenda.
it brings you fun things like this series.
So, as far as your interest in horror, because sometimes I have guests on here who aren't really horror people, so I ask them what their experience is. You have experience in horror, but what's your favorite genre or branch of horror?
Yes, I love it. So I generally enjoy very campy, low budget 80s horror, usually slashers. So honestly, Chucky, and I think this is one of your questions, how much I know of Chucky. I was terrified because, again, just like Talkie Tina, everything like that. I was absolutely terrified. I did have a my brother, kid, sister type doll situation. So I did not want anything to do with Chucky, and my father, who worked in the industry, was like, "No, I can show you exactly how he works and how many puppeteers it takes," and I would just run screaming, So,
I didn't know that about your father.
Yeah, he used to be he used to work for Panavision, well, a company basically contracted through Panavision. So he would be helping with the cameras and stuff like that. So he was always involved in kind of like the behind the scenes process.
Okay.
And so that also always fascinated me. And he used to watch like shows like, Movie Magic and things like that. And had a lot of friends in the industry who did like creature effects and things like that because, well, he was there and they would get to talking, and that's just kind of the dude he is and was and always has been. So,
that's super interesting. I really do like that perspective because we've not had anyone who has that kind of. It's not necessarily your background, but who has access to that kind of background.
Yeah, and that definitely instilled like a reverence in me because he had such a reverence for it. And I think that's why I also kind of gravitated eventually to horror, even though for probably until I was about 12, I completely did not want, well, no, probably, I don't know, 21. I did not want anything to do with horror because it was scary and I didn't like to be scared. And then I discovered, it's a safe scare.
Mm-hmm. Now, as someone who's like into horror now, have you found yourself kind of desensitized to horror?
Yes, absolutely. And honestly, I think it's kind of like immersion therapy because I am a very anxious person and, I have anxiety and I think a lot of times too, it is kind of like an immersion thing of like, oh, okay, yeah, these are just effects or, like I said, an appreciation. Like I can watch something and be like, wow, that was incredibly done. I have no idea how they did that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, especially with like the Chucky franchise. Like from a technical standpoint, even from the first movie, the stuff they do with these animatronics, with the puppet, with the like forced perspective, all of that is just so incredibly, and at times there will be bits where you watch and you're like, okay, it's obvious how they did that, but at some point you just don't care either, just because it looks cool.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And with horror, all horror, you have to suspend your disbelief. Like, you just have to. Because horror is supernatural and weird. I mean, like, again, a serial killer puts his soul into a doll, like...
Yeah, exactly.
You have to suspend to have fun.
Yeah, so, like, if you have a serial killer in the body of a doll, you're not going to care if a guy bleeds out under his fingernails.
Right, absolutely. And completely bleeds out a lot.
Right? That was like he had a garden hose under his finger.
Like, under his like, every orifice, and then probably toes, I would imagine.
Is a fingernail an orifice?
Well, it is now.
Yeah, Chucky found a way.
Chucky. That's the beauty of Chucky. He finds a way.
Exactly. Oh boy. All right. So yeah, this is going to be a fun episode. So I think what I want to do is dive into a little bit about the background of the episode, and then we'll kind of get into our discussion.
Absolutely.
So today we're talking about the 5th episode of Chucky, which you can catch on SyFy and USA Network. This episode is Little Little Lies. So I'm trying to figure out if that is a direct reference to Big Little Lies, the show. I don't know yet. The director of this episode is Leslie Libman, who also directed the previous episode. And the writers on this one are Harley Payton and Rachel Paradis. Now, as far as what the episode concerns, it follows the trio of Jake, Devin, and Lexi as they attempt to destroy the Chucky doll. However, we also get a very, very interesting, very campy look into the past of Charles Lee Ray as well. So, like, at the very basic level, that's what the episode is about. Now, what did you think of the episode?
It's great because it keeps progressing. I've watched up until this point now, and I've watched, like, 3 of the Chucky movies. I'm not into sequels, which you'll find out once we do our podcast sequels. which will be coming out eventually and will take over the world.
Please have me on that one.
Yeah, you know, like...
I have thoughts on sequels.
I have real thoughts on sequels, which is, I don't like them. So, like, I don't know, like, all of the things that go into Chucky, you know, and everything that happens. So part of it, yeah, when we get into it later, like, yeah, I kind of didn't get it. But I do like that, yeah, we start off, like, right off the bat in, like, the 80s, and I forgot how much that, like, Chucky, grown-up, adult male Chucky in a human body, how much he looks like Tommy Wiseau.
Right. Hi, Mark.
I know, and it was great.
I did not stab her. I did not.
What a story. Hi, doggy. And it was great. I loved it. And so a lot of, like, stuff actually happened in this episode, and that's what I like, because everything, like, progresses. Like, we get that scene where he's, you know, in this really 80s bar, and, you know, basically looking for a lay and a slay, you know, in the same time. And it kind of cuts in and weaves in and out, and that's what I like about the series too, is it kind of goes further into his background and who he was and how he became who he is, which is Tommy Wiseau. So in this, we have a lot of stuff going on. The little girl wakes up, Caroline, I think her name is.
Yep.
From the whole house burning down incident. We have, like, finally the team comes together as a mystery team, which I liked.
They're just missing a pet.
Yeah,
it could have been Jake's cat, but Jake's cat got killed, so.
Yeah, that was a bummer. We didn't see it, though, so I was fine with that. Like, if it's off screen, I can always imagine, like, it actually got away and Chucky can't.
It's just wandering around with, like, 3 feet.
Yeah, and it lives a happy life on a farm, and Chucky...
Got a new name, Stumpy.
Tripod.
Tripod, there you go.
And he's fine. And yeah, we have the detective dead. And by the way, nurses do not wear those outfits anymore.
Yeah, but that's part of the whole camp of the thing.
I know, but
I commented that to my wife, like, as we were watching. I'm like, you know, I really appreciate, like, they're going with, like, those ridiculous old school nurse outfits, because it's so funny.
Yeah, and honestly, there's a lot of times in it where they'll kind of mention, like, when something like that happens, where it's like, I don't know, you know, and so I was kind of waiting for something like, oh, this is the rich person's hospital, like, this is why they dress up like that.
Well, and then the size of that room that they put Caroline in.
Oh my god.
Because I've had to go to a hospital, and I've never seen a room that freaking big before.
I've recently been at the hospital, and I was shoved into a box.
You know, with the way things are going, you might have been shoved into, like, the hallway. You know what I mean?
Or into a, just... needle bin. That too. But yeah, I mean, like, this is a rich person's hospital, obviously. Oh, yeah. And like they keep saying, oh, crimes don't happen here. So maybe that's why they have all this money and really nobody comes in for anything. Yeah, Caroline, I like her as a character. I do. I am not certified to talk about because it plays off that she's autistic or on the spectrum, which usually just plays off of her screaming about wanting Chucky.
Right. Well, and, you know, it's one of those things where, like, yeah, I'm not qualified to talk about it either. I have worked with kids who are on the spectrum, and her behavior isn't too outside of that, if I'm being honest, based on my own experience. But then again, I'm, like, not an expert here.
Yeah, I would. It's just interesting to me. Again, I like her as a character, and I like that they were trying to develop her as, like, you know, an artist, and then they dropped that immediately.
Well, then again, also, like, in the time that we've been with her, like, her house is burned down and stuff, we haven't been able to, like, do much with her doing art or anything.
Yeah, I loved the scenes with her and Chucky playing video games, and I wanted a million times more of that.
Yeah.
I wanted so much of that.
I appreciate like that they're showing kind of like that fixation that these kids can sometimes have. So specifically like her fixation on Chucky, but also the song when Lexi sings her a song. It was one of those things where it's like, okay, yeah, that's something that.
Whoa! What the fuck was that? What the fuck was that? Let me sing you a lullaby of death.
But so number one, again, incredibly camp. But like those fixations can be like surprising sometimes.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. Like, my little cousin was like into fans, super fans, every fans are good, and I get that, like, but I'm not certified. I haven't been certified to talk about autistic people. Right. I just don't want another Sia situation. So it's just like, I'm like, ooh, okay. But I like her character. I'm glad she's fine. I'm glad she has a new friend.
Yeah.
In Tommy.
Oh, poor Tommy. So,
poor Tommy.
You've seen the original trilogy.
Yes,
and
I do know Tommy. Yes,
yeah.
I do remember Tommy.
If your name is Tommy, you have no luck in this universe.
Mm-hmm. Poor Tommy. He was buried under the swing set, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was buried under the swing set in Child's Play 2. Yeah. What did you think of that scene with Chucky looking into the window?
That was great, because I was like, I wanted a Taylor Swift song to start playing.
Yeah, everybody kept pointing out like similarities to Lotso Huggin' Bear from Toy Story 3.
That's very true. It looks like a breakup scene to me. Like, how dare you move on from me?
That's okay. Chucky has a shiny new body.
Oh, he does. It's beautiful. And honestly, I love that he was like all freaking burnt and mutilated, which he goes through in the original series too.
Oh yeah.
And that's the fun thing, is like he can just keep getting new bodies. You provide him with something, he'll, and that's another thing too. I forget. I know it's like a voodoo thing, which I am also not certified. I know voodoo priestess is probably certified more than I am. But whatever god he is praying to, this god loves him, because he could like frickin' soul transfer into like a coffee can, and the god would be like, cool, all right, see you later, bro.
I believe the name of the god that he is invoking, again, I'm not an expert on hoodoo, voodoo, or voodoo, because there's like different forms of it. But I believe the god he is invoking is Damballa.
Okay, well, Damballa loves his shit. He is a Chucky fan, 100%. Because he, like, anytime he's like, hey, bud, I need to switch. And he's like, yeah, sure, cool. Hey, Dad, I need the keys to the car.
Right.
And he's like, yep, just be back by 11, son. But he don't care. He don't care. He loves him. And I thought that was great.
Well, and I also like that, like, even though this voodoo element is completely ridiculous and campy, they are kind of starting to lay out some rules to it, because we see that a little bit in this episode later with when we return to Mika and Tiffany Valentine.
Yeah,
because
we finally
we haven't
see them.
Yeah,
we finally, because after all this buildup of like in the credits saying and starring Jennifer Tilly, and you're like, when is she gonna come here? We finally see Jennifer Tilly, and she's...
Oh, and she arrives in a very big way.
Oh, she does. Yeah. Oh, but before we go there, I want to talk about the stupidest plan ever.
Okay, the needle bin, right?
Freaking needle, and I know that they're like 14, but she's OP, like, what the fuck?
Well, and that's what I love about like horror, because you can sit back and say, "Oh, that's totally stupid," but in the moment, like you just enjoy that they make stupid decisions like that, because you have to.
Yeah,
that's what we derive the pleasure from.
It was, and again, like brain roll juice. Like in a way, it was awkward. I'm glad that Lexi finally freaking stepped up to like put her hands in the needle bin, because again, like. Needles, AIDS, it goes back because this is a queer show. This is at the core a queer show, and we've gone, very much past well, we're still in the AIDS epidemic. It still happens, and so when I saw oh, we queers are gonna put our hands in this bin full of needles and possibly get AIDS, I was like, oh no.
Right. Oh yeah, no, the bin full of medical waste, although apparently Chucky loves it.
Oh, he fucking
just high off his balls, his little plastic balls just swimming through garbage.
Which again, you're probably not going to get that much but again, it was really a great scene just to see him freaking covered in needles and just enjoy swimming in it, just enjoying himself.
Well, and that's a thing. You get the sense that Charles enjoys having the doll body.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Well, no, he did enjoy it in Seed of Chucky. No, Bride of Chucky.
Okay.
But no, but he realizes that there's a disposable nature to himself, and he kind of takes risks as the doll, which it's interesting to see, because it's just there's something about he's kind of realized that he does have some advantages in this form, and he's willing to do really stupid, dangerous things because ultimately it doesn't matter because of the soul split.
Yes, the soul split. We will get to that.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna put a pin in that because that was freaking wild.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But before we go there, I want to just talk about a lot of other things.
Oh yeah, no, please, by all means, no, this is great.
Because there's so much that goes on before we will get to that because that is in my notes. I'm like, what? So, we learned a lot in this episode. Actually, this episode is a turning point in a lot of different ways. Because of course, for the last 4 episodes, there's a lead up between Jake and Devin. There's Lexi finally coming as a actual person. And then Junior.
Oh yes.
And it was so freaking WB. I love how they're like, we need to tell Junior. And it's we can't tell Junior. He lacks imagination.
Oh yeah. Well, and then also
that's such a WB excuse.
Right. Well, and then also the whole thing with Junior, the dinner scene with the phone, it goes from WB to psychological horror as well, because he's well, why are you texting my girlfriend? And then you have that scene with
the dad
with Logan.
Yeah, there's a lot of this one's very parental too.
Mm-hmm.
We get a lot of parental fighting and as you said in your notes, toxicity between the parents. That's still kind of I don't know, that's very Riverdale to me, and which I don't, trust me, I enjoy, I enjoy all of this. So
yeah, it's not bad. It's tropey, but it's also part of that whole camp of everything. Everything is heightened to 11 here. Oh yeah,
it's it feeds on tropes and it spits them out, but in a very enjoyable and easily digestible way. And yeah, the phone scene was great. Because again, Junior, he's trying to live up to his dad's expectations. The mom has the secret, oh man, we think it's, she's having an affair. We find out that it's not that she's having an affair. Which we get in a very, very stereotypical, therapist scene, which I love. I loved that office, and I love that scene where she's just sitting on the couch right in the middle of it, because it shows so much of her character.
Oh yeah,
I have to be balancing everything, and that was so great. That was a really good visual scene, and that's honestly, this show is amazing visually.
Oh yeah, like
amazing.
Especially the usage of color. Like in my reviews, I've mentioned like there's a lot of parallels to Hannibal, which like so Don Mancini wrote for Hannibal. He wrote like several episodes of that show, but just from a color design, cinematography, there's a lot to borrow from Hannibal in this show.
I didn't watch Hannibal yet. I know I need to.
No.
I know. Otter 3 is always like on my ass about it.
It's very good. You will enjoy it if you like Chucky because it has kind of like that queer angle to it. You're gonna absolutely love Hannibal because it's very much the same kind of wheelhouse. They turned Hannibal Lecter into like a queer icon.
Yeah, I know. I've been on like gay Reddit and everyone's like, "Oh, it's so good." I'm like, I know. Eventually, I'll get to it. Well, and that's what I like about this show too, because it's not. I mean, like, I would love to say this is like Love Victor with murder and F-bombs.
I like it.
And that's really what it is, because it's like this is the and this is kind of like where it also diverges, because in the last episode we see very clearly Jake is like, I am not like you, Chucky. We are very different from each other. I am not a killer. You are a killer. I am cutting my life off from you. You know?
Yeah.
Big breakup, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to kind of describe, because like all the relationship between Chucky and Jake was very much like a courtship, and it was a courtship with like an abusive partner.
Well, he was basically grooming him.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
An older man was grooming him. Yikes.
Right.
And, you know, and was absolutely, it was very abusive, because it was like, I'm your only friend. You can only rely on me. You know, this is the way that we do things. And, you know, Jake, you know, being as strong as he is with his father, with, you know, his father's death, and Lexi being an absolute, can I say cunt?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
I think I think my wife described her as such at one point.
She really is. And so for him to do all that, and at the very end to say, I'm not like you, and that's where we get the juxtaposition of queerness in this episode too, is because we have Jake and Devin, and we have our very first, and I loved how they visualized and just set up this hand-holding scene, because it was a very like close your eyes, and I don't know if other people have had this happen. I have, and it did not turn out well.
Oh no.
But yeah. But like the whole like, you know, close your eyes with your crush and like kind of let yourself go and be open and expressive, and Jake does, and Devin takes his hand, and it's a very beautiful and soft scene that is absolutely honestly lacking in a lot of medium, although like, you know, you go on like 9gag and they will tell you otherwise, but it was just a beautiful scene, because they're just standing there, and it's a time lapse of people moving around them, and you know, they are in their own time. They are in their own space.
And then that scene with their first kiss was also like very beautiful.
You ruined it, Dave. I was leading up.
Oh no.
Yes. And it was so sweet. It was just, it's this gentle sweetness of having a crush for the first, maybe not first time, but like it first actualized for the first time in your life. And through this whole thing, we haven't really known where Devin has lied on that spectrum. Even with Jake and his feelings, you know, he keeps growing closer, you know, and that's like very typical of a first time crush, especially a queer crush, because you're like, it was very obvious, obviously, because, you know, even Lexi in the talent show was like, you know, he really wants to suck his Dean. He's like, oh my god. And, like, so to see this, and to see it so sweetly and innocently, and actually that was why I wanted to come on this podcast, is because again, gay Reddit was like, it was on I think the Gay Bros Reddit, and every male was lamenting, like, I wish my first crush or my first kiss had been like this.
Right, and I saw, because they do the extended features for the episodes, like they put them online and everything like that, and they have like interviews with the actors, with Tom Mancini, everything like that, and or I'm sorry, Don Mancini. So Zachary Arthur, who plays Jake, asked Don, like, was this what your first kiss was like? And then Don was like, no, this is what I wish it was.
Yeah. And
it's a beautiful moment. Like, I really appreciate that they went to like that tenderness, and it was, just like it made me happy to see. My wife and I were just like, oh, this is so nice.
Absolutely, and especially with queer and gay media, for so long we've gotten, especially with two males, it's usually like from the early 2000s, it's usually like, oh, you must repress,
Yeah, it tends to be very subtle, or it tends to be almost like fetishized to a degree.
Or it's just very violent, it's very violent, or it's very like, and then they got AIDS and died. Your Brokeback Mountains and whatnot, so I think this is a great show of like how our culture can progress, and it's the popular culture to make it, to normalize this, because it is normal and it should be, and to have these two young boys, well, they're not young boys, but these two like 14-year-olds, as we all have been, on their bikes, getting a very sweet first kiss, and then just being like, we killed Chucky, yay, see you around.
Yep. Well, one of the things I like about that moment is, did you see the Eternals at all?
No.
So they make a big deal like about a kiss in the Eternals between two men, and like just comparing the kissing scenes between these two very different franchises here. There's virtually like nothing going on in the Eternals moment. It's just very like, it's like sanitized and everything like that. It's like, it's obviously, I don't want to offend people in China or whatever, but like, I appreciate the actual passion that goes into what we saw in this episode of Chucky in comparison. It's like, it's not afraid to go there and to normalize it, where you can see there's kind of like a reluctance or a hesitance in like a big budget tentpole franchise movie, which I found super interesting. I think that's one of the reasons why we love horror so much, is because they're willing to go to places that other genres can't.
Sometimes, but they also pull their punches a lot of times too, because there's so many times that I'll be watching a movie and be like, they seem like such a couple, and in a way it feels like they should be, but it's like, I bet that was a pulled punch, and if they're gonna go for queer, then it's like highly market, like that's how it is. Like, what I enjoyed about the I think it was Icelandic movie Thirst, was that it's a character, and that's the main and baseline, is that instead of having characters, and they're gay, it's a facet of the character. With Jake and Devin, we see different facets of these characters. And honestly, with Devin, we see a lot more. He's got his podcast. He's a musician. Like, he's a catch,
Yeah, you can't just call these characters, the gay kids.
Right. They are not.
Yeah, they are distinct personalities.
And that's what Freaky really lacked on. And that's why I gave it kind of a lower score, is because it's like, and gay best friend and black best friend, and it's like, oof, we need to get away from that. And that's why this one was like incredible, because he's our main character, and that's why it's like Love, Simon, but like horror.
Yeah, exactly.
And F-bombs.
Yeah, and it's just to have this like gay black teenager where it's like not a big deal that he's gay or black.
Well, and we don't even know he's gay. Like, he's been very quiet about his sexuality.
Yeah.
And
so you'll have to forgive me, because like I am an ally, but sometimes I still kind of struggle struggle with like the language of this and like the spectrum and everything like that. So please thank you for like correcting me when you can, because that helps me, bro.
Yeah, absolutely, bro.
I got you, fam.
I'm dabbing as we speak. I'm sure the kids are delighted.
That's lit.
Like 10 years ago. But yeah, and so it's and that's where the juxtaposition happens with the other scene, which is quote unquote gay. Which we have two females who are under the male gaze of Chucky, Charles Lee Ray. And that is more, it's sexual, and again, it's under his gaze. So, and not gaze as Gays.
Uh-huh. No, I get you.
So, and that's the juxtaposition also between the queerness of our main character, Jake, and I guess you could say the queerness of Chucky, because he does eventually inhabit a feminine body to have sex with Tiffany and kill people.
And then the impression that I get from the episode, from a line from Tiffany, is that now that Chucky is in Nika's body, now Chucky is having sex with men now as well. She mentions him like diversifying his tastes a little bit.
I don't know if that was towards men. I don't know. I think that might just be killing. I don't know, because again, I think that might just be a gender instead of a sexual identity. Because Nika was wearing some very sexy lingerie.
Right.
And again, having to imagine Charles Lee Ray like, I want this kind, not that kind. I want this bodice, not that bodice. Like going online and searching for these things.
But the whole situation is like very queer because of the way that it plays with like bodies. And especially when you take that in combination with the flashbacks and who played young Charles Lee Ray. There's some interesting stuff going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. And even Chucky, too, he very early on was like, oh, like LGBTQ, yeah, no problemo. Like, I have a gender fluid kid, whatever.
Gender fluid.
Yeah, so it's like... not a big deal. He himself is kind of a bit maybe gender fluid, or because again, to inhabit, and again, maybe that's just, but I mean, he could inhabit any body,
right?
But maybe not. I'm not too. I don't know how voodoo works, or at least in this instance.
Or how Chucky brand voodoo works.
Right, that's what I mean. Like, I don't know how Chucky brand voodoo works. I don't know how regular voodoo works. I don't think it's that way, but I don't know.
And ultimately, I'm curious to see where all this is going, because like I love the fact that he's like inhabiting Nika's body. It's very, very like interesting. Then we have the fact that, like, he lost control of her for a little bit.
Yeah. Now, okay, so this is where my ignorance comes in, because I don't know Nika. Like, I tried to, like...
They did give you that background of her in the episode.
Very, like,
it was a very... Yeah, it's a lore dump, but it's very, like, just, we gotta jam it in here to catch up the newbies or whatever.
Yeah, I was like, oh, her family was killed by him. She said it was him. Everybody said she was crazy. Part of his soul is in her. And now she's wearing fishnets.
Yeah, so, and then also she was paraplegic.
Yeah, which is strange, because when Chucky is in her, she is not.
But it's part of that whole camp thing.
It's part of the magic of Chucky.
Well, it's kind of like the same thing in Rocky Horror with Dr. Scott. You don't get the sense that Dr. Scott could, like, move his legs, but when he puts on those fishnets, he starts doing the high kicks.
You're right. It is the power of fishnets. You're
exactly.
Right. I get it. That makes more sense.
But Yeah, so, excuse me. So, with Nika, she first appeared in Curse of Chucky. And she was living with her mom. It turned out that in Charles's past, just before Child's Play, he had basically kidnapped Nika's mom, and he was intending on marrying her in his bizarre, fucked up way. But then the police show up, and he goes on the run, and that leads to the events of Child's Play, where he dies in the toy store.
Okay.
So he basically murders off this family, with the exception of Nika. She gets, blamed for that and gets put into a mental hospital, and that's Cult of Chucky.
Gotcha. And then she is escaped by Chucky so he can inhabit her and have sex with Jennifer Tilly.
Yeah, well, who wouldn't want to have sex with Jennifer? Okay.
Seriously, though. Though. Jennifer Tilly is amazing, and again, we get to see her transformation, which was kind of weird to me, which was in a way amazing because, again, so there's this, it's a threesome because he's watching and these two women are engaged in sexual fun times. Mm-hmm. And that's why I also kind of feel like, I don't know, is it queer or is it the male gaze, You get into feminism and you get into queer theory and it gets a little hazy and a little murky, and I think that's also a great, like I said, juxtaposition between, little baby gays and their flannels and their kisses and their hand holdings, and how sweet and cute and great that is, because they've developed as characters. These two women, we don't know really anything about them.
Yeah, the first time we meet the first woman, we get the impression that she might be Tiffany at first.
Yeah, and in this episode, they should call it, I don't know, the emasculation of men? I don't know. Because that comes out a lot of times, too, because when the dad of Mayor Dad...
and Nathan.
I like Mayor Dad.
Mayor Dad works.
Mayor Dad works.
The first husband.
Yes. When Mayor Dad is our kids are traumatized, we should probably, I don't know, do something about that because they're fucking traumatized. Mayor is fuck you. I don't like it when you have feelings. And again, at the table with Junior, and Junior's I kind of don't want to do nationals because I was fucking traumatized, and his dad's fuck you.
We're getting you a personal trainer. Let's do this.
You're gonna fucking do this because you have an advantage and you gotta take it. And
that's a very fucked up thing to say too.
Yeah,
which
is just weird because, and again, we had already gotten the foreshadowing because he's showing off all the awards that his dad had, at the party. He had all the medals his dad had. So we saw.
I feel like that costume was his dad's idea.
Or he's I'm going to do this so Daddy's proud. I am Junior after all.
Daddy, look at me. Aren't I impressive, Daddy?
Look at my pretty little eyes. He has so many pretty eyes. All two of them. They're really pretty, though. Anyway, so, this whole thing, because also, too, although it was the last episode, Chucky called into question, Jake's masculinity. Are you a pussy? Or are you going to kill her, So, in this one, it also plays off of that, too. It adds to that. If you have emotions, you're a fucking pussy, And so I like that it was, anti this, because men, guess what? They got emotions, and they get traumatized. And I like Mayor Dad because he's trying to be a real, good dad. And
I've come around it because part of my issue with his character is because I keep associating him with his actor who played a total asshole in Cult of Chucky. So last week,
funny.
So last week I was excited when he got punched in the face, but now I feel bad about that because, his character is, he's not doing a great job, but he's at least trying.
He's doing the best he can. It must not be easy to have a cunt for a daughter and to have a cunt for a wife, really, honestly. But in this too, we see what we think is Tiffany going back to that scene.
Yes.
And she's like slapping this dude around, and like, I don't know, was she like pinching his balls? I don't know. It seemed like she was pinching his balls. He was like, I don't like this.
Well, whatever it was, I'd be into it. So.
He was not though, and he did not consent. And
no, he did not.
We're all about consent on on HauntedMTL. And she basically was like, I think she called him a pussy or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, and so he got out of there. Good for him for knowing his boundaries and getting the fuck out of Dodge. And that's when Chucky approaches her, and he's like, "Hey, you want to play?" And she's like, "Sure." And then they get a redhead. Now that's when the two girls are like, I don't know, hugging on the bed. It's very intense hugging with mouths and also vaginas, and and he's just watching with his male gaze and his suit, because he looks like freaking Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah, and he's just kind of like chilling back on the couch, just kind of like, it's like he's watching a football game or something.
Yeah, I mean, like, he doesn't have a huge range of emotions except for screaming as Chucky the doll and
laughing.
So, he gets out his knife because he wants to murder, and he's gonna murder the redhead, and she's like, fucking do it. And she's into it. She is into it. And he gets I don't know, like, it's a knife erection, but then, like, the knife erection goes away because he doesn't want to kill her because she wants it. And then, he kills the other chick because she's like, what are you, a fucking pussy? Again, a lot of, like, emasculation in this episode.
Well, and one thing I love about that scene particularly is, like, how consistent it is with the character of Charles Lee Ray / Chucky, because he always has these plans. He plans to do something, and then just something, like, distracts him.
Well, he's chaotic
goes in a different direction. Exactly.
He's chaotic evil, so he's like, okay, you know what? Change your plans.
Yeah.
So then he stabs the blonde-haired girl, and then red-haired girl is like, holy shit. She goes to stab her, and again, penetration. So we're talking about, like, a male, still, because she emasculated him, now she's being penetrated by him to death. And then the redhead comes and starts penetrating her with the knife. Not vaginally. I'm talking, like, through the chest.
Yeah, literary theory, like, penetration representing, Yeah.
So, and she orgasms. In blood. She does. She do.
Yep.
She's like,
no, I'm right there with you. It's like, it makes sense for Tiffany.
She orgasms with her first kill, and then they make out with the blood, and that's how, and then he's like, and then suddenly she has Jennifer Tilly voice.
Right. Yeah, let's talk about that dubbing for a moment.
Oh, the dubbing was pretty bad.
Yeah, and I think it was intentionally bad because the whole flashback is done with kind of like that VHS kind of filter over it,
and it's
that
beautiful.
Sort of thing. Yeah, I think it's supposed to evoke just like bad 80s film.
Well, it's great because when we see him as a child, it's bad 80s. When we see him as, I guess, a teenager, it's like bad 70s film.
Right. And then when he was a kid, it was like 60s, like home video.
Yeah. And like now it's like VHS. So I do like that progression of it. And yeah, so then she has Jennifer Tilly voice.
Right. And that kind of came out of nowhere, but it's a metaphor for that transition into that character.
Yes.
Which it's goofy, it's ridiculous, it's campy as shit, and I love it.
Yeah. I laughed. It's meant to be a funny beat, and it is a funny beat. And then he says, you should dye your hair blonde. And
you should go by Chucky.
Oh, that's right. And she said, and she names him. Yeah, and that's how they make each other. And so yeah, that's how that happens. And then later on, like they're going to. Then it goes back to the kids. Which again, I'd like, you know, in a way, it's kind of like, and it's a weird, like going to it, but it's kind of like in a way Cobra Kai is, because it's like you have these other characters that you've grown with, you know, since the 80s, and they're also creating a new story. Now, where I feel like Cobra Kai has failed is that I don't give a rat's ass about most of the new characters that are kids. Except for Miggy. I do like Miggy.
I love Cobra Kai, and like I've started to like care for the kids, which is like a huge thing for me. Like
I love Cobra Kai. I really only care about Miggy and Johnny. Like I don't care about his kid. I don't care about like shit, what's his name? Anyway, I don't care for the kids. No, Miguel, I love Miggy.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's because I was like Miggy. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Well, his mom calls him Mickey.
That's right.
Yeah. And so I'm just like, oh yeah, my little baby Miggy.
I think you're right though about like kind of like that parallel to Cobra Kai, because this like Chucky is an example of like bringing back that kind of 80s classic in a way that continues the story, and like Cobra Kai was the same thing.
Absolutely, and they're getting back the old actors, which is the important part, because that's obviously something that you can't really do with like Psycho. You know, unfortunately, you know, Anthony Perkins has passed, and you know, so like that's a completely new thing, you know, on its own, standalone. But this is like it's appealing to fans. It's reaching out to fans. It's bringing back what we enjoy from, you know, the 80s.
Yeah, but it's also creating something new, because you're going to have like a generation of people who are going to be like, no, Jake is my favorite of the protagonists. Just like for me, it was Andy.
Yes, right.
But like for like this new generation that's getting into it, because like the kids are enjoying Chucky quite a bit, which makes me so happy.
That's amazing, and I'm glad, because, you know, again, it's like, I don't know, I think it's a perfect mix of both, because it is going something so different from the original. And I do love, don't get me wrong, I love Cobra Kai. Like, I freaking love it to death. But that is one thing, you know, it was very WB drama. It was like, wait a minute, they're fighting in the school and nobody's suspended? Like, or...
Well, I also attribute that to kind of like the whole camp attitude as well. Like, for some reason, like, where's the place that Cobra Kai takes place in LA? I forget it.
I forget.
Yeah, but like there's roving gangs of karate kids. I love that aspect of it. It's so stupid and I love it.
I do too, but they do update it very much. Like they talk about cultural appropriation. They talk like, so it's very much, oh, okay, this is right now and right here, you know? Whereas I feel, I don't know, Chucky is like, you could probably never have a teacher that says, shut the fuck up, you know, to one of her students. But here I'm like, yeah, okay, I see it, you know, like I'm much more willing to forgive it, because it is much more magical and you know, much more able to suspend my disbelief. And it does draw more of the characters. It's not just karate championships. And I guess that's why I like Miggy, is because I feel like he is a true, well-developed character. And I feel like these are getting to be more well-developed characters. I am starting to have an okayness with Lexi, you know? Like, I feel like that could be something when they get together as their full Scooby-Doo once Junior joins in, you know? And I think that's great. And, you know, you had just said that there's a season 2 in the works.
It looks like it. I'm not entirely sure yet, but Zachary Arthur did, like, spoil something on Instagram saying, like, see you in season 2. So we'll find out.
That would be amazing. Like,
this is a show that would benefit from a second season. Like, it's a huge thing right now. It trends every week.
I could see it absolutely being like a 3-season thing. Like, and then, 3 and done, Don't make it a Riverdale thing. Please don't make it a Riverdale thing. Jesus Christ.
Well, and the other thing is, like, they could go in an anthology direction, because there's so many different, like, good guy dolls out there that you could have, an entire another community that's being, like, tortured by this little psychopath in a body.
Absolutely. So, and it's great.
I do want to get back to something you were saying about Junior joining the band.
Yeah.
Do you think that's going to happen?
I think so. I think eventually there's going to be, like, right now they have to play hard to get, we can't, there's going to be, I think, some kind of, it's going to be either or. He's either going to be, like, the thing that fucks him over, or he's going to be the thing that eventually he joins and is maybe not the one to save the day, but something like that.
Yeah. Because I'm seeing Junior, I'm seeing his path is going more towards, like, Chucky's going to turn his sights on Junior as far as, like, grooming goes. Because he's seeing that, like, because, Chucky's been haunting that house for, at least, like, a week or so. He probably has an idea that, like, okay, here's a kid who is being abused by his dad. He's got shit he can't deal with. He seems like he would be a good...
Oh, he would be a good rival. That's true.
Yeah.
He would be a good rival, because now it's, like, between the two sons, like...
Yeah, and then you have... Yeah, and then you have Junior being pushed out of that group. Like, that scene at the town meeting at the end of the episode where Junior kind of comes up to the seats, and it's just so awkward, and, like, you can get why Junior is absolutely pissed, and, like, it would make sense that, like, Chucky might notice that.
Yeah. And by the way, is Chucky sponsored by Westworld? Because it's been brought up twice now.
Well, so there's definitely some parallel between Westworld and Child's Play.
Okay.
As far as, like, artificial beings and that sort of thing. Like,
it's been brought up twice.
Well, also, like, based on the mentions of Westworld, I think they're saying that the show is set in 2017. It kind of varies. It kind of varies a little bit, but based on what they're saying, it seems like Westworld would have just premiered.
Which is fine, but I'm just like, what a specific show. And I remember, like, Caroline was supposed to be, like, watching Westworld. And
exactly. I'm like, I remember talking about that, and, like, yeah, she shouldn't be watching Westworld.
No.
But no, like, if you, like, how familiar are you with Westworld as a show?
I'm not. Okay. I am more familiar with the movie with Yul Brynner.
Right. Okay, but even then, like, the movie Westworld, I do think that there's some definite parallels you can draw between, like, the Westworld franchise and Child's Play, because there is an element of artificial beings, and there is a lot of murder going on. Like, that might be a fun idea for an episode. It's just kind of like, why are they drawing this parallel so much?
Yeah. And I say that with jest. I think it is interesting. And like you said, like, it draws parallels, and it's kind of like, I don't know.
Or it could be that Don Mancini is just a huge fucking fan of Westworld.
Honestly, that could also be, like, it could be a lot of different things. It could just be like, I don't know. But it was just really great when Junior comes up in biology and he's like, so you guys seen Westworld? And they're like,
but we've all been in that situation where we're just trying to, like, talk to people, you know what I mean?
I know.
So we bring
absolutely.
So, like, all the characterizations with the kids, like, they've been pretty, on point, I think.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Just the awkwardness of that age.
Except, I think they should have aged them up. These are not 14-year-olds as much as, like, I don't know, 16 or 17-year-olds.
Well, then again, like, we're shocked. Like, yeah, because I admit, like, when Lexi was smoking weed and everything, I was a little shocked. But having worked with high school students and overheard what they're talking about, and just not like I'm not like listening in on their conversations, but they don't know to, like, not lower their voice. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
hearing the stuff they talk about that they did at, like, 14 years old, I'm just like, Jesus Christ.
Well, it's not even that. Like, trust me, I know, like, well, I don't know, but, I know, like, even 13, 14, like, even at my, like, you knew people who knew people, but, I mean, just, like, how they talk, how they interact, it seems developmentally to me at least, and again, it's my 2 fucking cents, mean nothing, but it seems like a little bit older, just a little bit older, like high school.
I can totally agree with you on that, but I'm also thankful that they're not doing the thing where it's like, you have 30-year-olds playing high schoolers.
Jesus Christ, yes.
Yeah, it's not a Riverdale situation.
Oh my god, it is not a Riverdale situation. Yes, they look young. They act young. They have stupid ideas like putting their fucking hands into
exactly
needles.
Well, and these kids, they're like, and I don't mean like kids as dismissive. I'm just talking about how they're young. You know what I mean? And they're really good. They're really good. Like, I love Zachary Arthur. I think his like emoting on his face is very satisfying to watch. And then Olivia, who plays Lexi, she's like the standout in every episode, I think.
Oh yeah, I love her and Devin. Because he is like the coolness to that. Like, she is high and he is low. And I'm sorry, but he makes way better podcasts than I'll ever make.
That's true. I do enjoy his podcast quite a bit. I'm surprised I kind of wish like during the mid-season maybe they would like produce a podcast that
not even a huge one, just like a 4-episode or something like that.
Like, tweet out the video or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just to like build up hype.
With that actor. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
And he is like, I think that's like one of the cool things about now, and it kind of reminds me too of Stranger Things, is that we are getting incredible kid actors. Like, they are just incredible. And I don't know. Like, I like Monster Squad. I thought the acting in that was really good. Although Evie would disagree with me. Throwdown.
Wolfman's got nards.
Wolfman does have nards. And that's also a documentary. Wolfman's got nards. And, but, yeah, like, these kids are incredible actors. I thought the direction is good. I think that's the only thing is, like, I think sometimes, and the writing is good, too. I think just sometimes it is, like, the whole, like, WB feel that it's just, this is a teen show, with F-bombs. Like I said, it's like Love, Simon with F-bombs and a psychotic doll.
Well, and I think the high drama of the teen angle is a good complement to the camp of the just the killer doll serial killing aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too. And again, like my spouse even has watched many of the episodes with me, and she does not like horror or things that I like. So it's been a treat. Like, she's laughed a few times, and we've talked about it, and so it's like, it's a good thing because it does kind of bring things together. The kills are fun. Oh man. Mm-hmm. Like you said, just bleeding out of every orifice.
Or how about the severed head?
Yes. So the end, yeah, that was great. Because as soon as I heard that song, as soon as I heard the notes start playing, I'm like, mm-hmm. Oh no, heads will roll.
and then, of course, like, again, evoking Hannibal, because the very deliberate setup of the body and everything like that is just like something out of that show.
Okay.
Where the villain or the killer of the episode will like have these like very grim tableaus that they assemble from corpses. So it's again, it's like those kind of influences kind of weaving their way in, which is a lot of fun. But like it's a severed head, and then like it blinks.
Yes, and I fucking loved it.
So good.
I loved it.
And especially as Detective Evans is like, we're doing everything we can, and then just like perfect timing on Chucky's part, the head rolls out.
And it's great too, because it's like, because she's been suspecting, well, she doesn't know what to suspect, and I love her too. She's great. And she's Devin's mom, obviously, and she's like, stay away from that Jake kid and his weird ass doll.
Oh, we get a little bit of that when she sees that Jake and Devin are holding hands as well. She has this like concerned look,
which is like crazy because they're like in the middle of an auditorium. Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
I've been up on stage before. You just see bright lights.
Yeah, well, were they holding their hands up in the air like it was a victory thing? What's going on?
Right. Were they making out like at the very like footlights? then that's cause for concern, my friend. Yeah, so she's been like, stay away from him. Somehow she's got mom sense and can sense that they're holding hands, which again is adorable.
Someone's touching my baby.
Yeah, right. Well, and again, because she had kind of a conversation where it's like the mom of a queer conversation where it's like, kind of like that, like feeling out because Devin hasn't said anything, but she kind of gets kind of like, so how are you and Jake? And are you guys friends? Kind of a thing. And it isn't that I don't think she's like, don't you date that boy. She's more like, I think he might be a killer or his dog.
Or killer adjacent.
Or something. Yeah, right. Killer adjacent. I think he's killer adjacent. Please don't date him. And he's like, I'll date whoever I want to date, Mom. We're just friends. Like we all do when we're like 14.
Right.
And then do absolutely opposite of what we say we're going to do.
Now, we're gonna wrap up pretty soon. I want to like get back to Fiona Dourif. So Fiona Dourif plays the character that her dad played, because she was the one playing young Charles Lee Ray. So like, she's incredible. Like,
okay. So I'm okay. That's amazing. I did not know that.
Oh, see, I thought you did.
Yeah.
Oh, so that blows your mind then.
That does blow my mind.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I gotta look this up then.
Because her laugh is like exactly like her dad's. It's spooky.
That is cray.
Yeah, and they were showing like the way that they changed her face is they just put a prosthetic below the nose to kind of get the chin going. Because everything from like the bridge of the nose up is just like her.
That is cray. No, I did not know that.
And it also puts together like an even more interesting spin on the events of the episode because you have that queerness of her playing a man. And then later you have the character of Charles, like in a way playing a woman, but also not.
Yeah, I mean, like the gender in this is like... Okay, so Fiona, that is crazy.
Right, it like blew my mind because at first I'm like, wow, this is a really good lookalike, and then I kind of like took a closer look, and they do a great job with like the lighting to obscure things a little bit, and then she's always got the sunglasses on a little bit, but like it blew my mind when I first figured it out during the episode. I'm like, holy shit, I think that's Fiona Dourif.
That's wow. Okay, yeah, I did not know that. And she... Okay, and she plays Nika too, right?
Yes.
That's wild. Okay, I know. That's wild.
So there's like this campy drag aspect to it as well, which is like super interesting, and it's just another layer of that kind of like queerness of the show.
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. That's crazy. Yeah, no, that blew my mind.
So when you rewatch it, like look closely and you'll kind of see you'll see how they do it, but it's very interesting how they did that, and I love that they're doing things like that.
Yeah, because that totally like that's just mean. That's really mean. Yeah, I'm like looking this up, and I'm just like, whoa. That is
so you've enjoyed your ride with the first 5 episodes so far. Are you excited to see where it ends up going?
Absolutely, because again, like I said, they're really good at building up on itself. There's a lot of playbacks to like other scenes, like even from the first episode, the second episode, so it plays well on itself. It's like it does feel like a build up, and I love build-ups. I hope the payoff is good. So far it has been. I love how theatrical Chucky is. I love I do love him with like the kids. I like their relationship together, and it's just, I don't know, it's wild. It's funny, again, for a season that a series that used to scare the shit out of me as a kid, I'm having a good time.
Now, does it make you want to go back and watch the other films? Because you've seen the original trilogy. Like, basically, it's in 3 eras, because you have the original trilogy, which is Child's Play. That's like the Andy era. Mm-hmm. Then you have Bride and Seed, and then you have Curse and Cult. Are you going to go back and watch those?
Might. Just because, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. I like the kid characters, so, and I like my little baby gays and how they're cute, and I don't know. Maybe not. At the very least, I am enjoying this. Mm-hmm. Just like if probably I like watched Hannibal, I probably wouldn't watch the movies. I'd probably just watch the series.
And that's fair, because as much as I love like Silence of the Lambs, most of the Hannibal Lecter films are just kind of, with the exception of Manhunter. I think Manhunter is pretty good, but that's another topic. I'll do a Hannibal podcast eventually.
I wish they would do more series kind of like this, like with Puppet Master, with like, go back to the 80s stuff and like kind of dive into it a little bit more, but also create something kind of new.
I think with like Chucky being as successful as it is, I would not be surprised if we hear that there's going to be like a Friday the 13th series or a Nightmare on Elm Street series or something like that, because the serialization here really works, and provided you got the right team on it, you could have something huge.
And honestly, too, what I like about this is that you have the old team on it. Like, that is essential. Like, you look at other ones that if you don't have the same team, it's gonna frickin' fall apart. That's why Cobra Kai is so good, is because it has the old team at the helm. It has the old players. It has, if you create something new like fucking Gem and the Holograms movie, you are just going to just fucking flounder and die, because this needs to be a reach out to the fans, right, while also extending the other hand to new fans.
And that's the balance that's really hard, and so far I think Chucky has managed that so well, of like being something reverential to the franchise, but also introducing new stuff. Like, I love the fact that we're finally going to get Andy and Kyle back. But
that's going to be wild.
Right, but I'm also like excited to see where everything goes with Jake, because I've really come to care for Jake, and I think he adds a lot to the franchise.
So. Absolutely. And like, it would be kind of cool to see all the final boys from Chucky as the abuser come together and try to fight off this evil.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, is like this show is about final boys, which is like kind of a I'm not going to say a rarity, but it's kind of a rarity as well.
It is 100% a rarity. There's a reason why the trope is called Final Girls. Yeah, we don't get final boys all that often. And again, I think even from the beginning, like, I have a date with a 10-year-old boy, like. From the original Chucky, mm-hmm. Like, again, it's like a grooming thing of boys of all kinds of sexualities and genders, and he is not a good dude. Even though he says, I did laugh really hard at the line when he was talking about like gender and sexuality, and he's like, I'm not a monster.
Yeah, well, and I just love the way he says gender fluid.
Yeah, gender fluid.
But the other thing is, like, that's also, like, you can't trust Chucky either, because it's clear that he's grooming. And that's part of the reason why I think I would suggest that you watch Seed of Chucky.
Okay.
Specifically because it deals with a gender fluid child. And, like, there's this big thing on the internet right now with the memes, you know what I mean? The memes in our youth, and they're doing, like, the whole Chucky with the trans flag thing. And I'm like, okay, that's cute, but also given Chucky's track record and given like his own ambivalence to Glenn/Glenda, like, I don't know if he's necessarily the trans ally that you want either.
Yeah, and that becomes kind of like a hard place because,
Yeah.
you know, when we talk about queer horror, we don't have a lot of good track records. Jesus Christ, we took the Babadook because of an error in Netflix.
I was just about to mention the Babadook.
You know, like, we're like, yeah, sure, Babadook's gay now, and we love
gay
it.
icon, the Babadook.
Babadook, you know, and again, because of an error, you know, and so, like, you know, even Angela, who's one of my favorite queer icons, who was a victim in most of their circumstances, you know, like, that's kind of like a thing. Like, so that's why I love Jake, because it's like, we have a nice boy, you know, we have a nice boy who's trying to do the right things. And he could have been Chucky. He could have been the next Charles Lee Ray.
It was very easy for him to be the next Chucky.
Absolutely. His father died. His father, who is, you know, homophobic, and he could have absolutely killed Lexi in that moment, because Chucky had predicted that, like, there will be a moment that you have this time and opportunity, and that's when you take it. And he chose not to. That's how strong he is, and I think that's why it's like he's the better queer icon. But of course, like, we also want a queer villain, you know.
Yeah, well, so I think, you know, seeing the little Chucky drawings of him with like the trans flag and everything like that, it's cute as shit. Like, I love it, but also it's also like there is kind of like this, like, almost like a desperation for gay representation that's like good, evil, just normalizing that kind of like queer representation that like you have queer characters of all types. So I do appreciate that, but it's also like just having followed the series for like 30 years, you know what I mean? It's like, just be careful of like where you put your expectations on the character.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I mean, this might be coming from the kids, I don't know. You know, I think the old queers, like, you know, me, you know, who have followed the series, understand that Chucky is a lying fucking bastard. He lies and he connives and that's what makes it so great, because he's this little doll. He's this, you know, whereas the inspiration, Taki Tina, was not like that. She was more of kind of like a protector. She was kind of like more of a puppet from Puppet Master, except with like more personality. But I think that's kind of like the difference of that. And, you know, yeah, but I don't know, give gays their icons, but you're right, he's a lying fucking bastard. And that's why I love the Babadook. At least you know what you're getting with the Babadook. He sends out a manual, you know.
Exactly. Babadook is pure.
Babadook, he tells you right off the bat, this is what's gonna happen, yo. And I like that. Like, and so yeah. So, and that would be a great conversation to have about like whether the authenticity of Chucky as a queer icon, and what does that even mean? Because in a way, you could say he is queer.
Especially because he's inhabiting different bodies.
Like, he's inhabiting different bodies, absolutely. And enjoying it. It's not just like, because a lot of times too, you'll get like a man in a woman's body, and you'll get the sexist, I can't
grabs the boobies, that sort of thing.
Yeah, either grab the boobies or the inferior sex. I can't be in this body. He looks like he's having the time of his life with Tiffany, you know. And I love the conversation between the two of them. And,
just the whole thing about like never let a man stand between you and what you love, and I want Swedish meatballs.
Yeah, absolutely.
and then Nico's like, or Chucky is like, go get fat then.
Right.
It's so
like
fucked.
You're just like your mother. Yeah, it was great. It was an old couple bickering, and she treats him, you know, as male, you know, and even though the body is, so that is trans, you know?
Yep.
So, and I think, you know, some people will get connected to that. that doesn't mean that they're going to get connected to, like, I'm going to kill people. You know, It just means that they connect to something of that. And so, I mean, I don't as much. I love my little Jake and my little Devin. And I just want to put a heart around them and wrap them up in bubble wrap.
They are an adorable little couple, but I am worried for them.
Well, of course. I mean, we're talking about a murder doll.
Well, it's not just that, though, but it's also the fact that Devin recorded Jake without consent, which is a big deal. That
is a big deal. Consent. That's another thing of this series. Yes, that's true. And what was that for? We don't even know what that was for yet.
Exactly. Like, so is Devin like making a podcast on the side here? Like, what's that going to do? It's there's what I like is that I get answers in the show, but I also get more questions as we go forward, which is the hallmark of a good show like this, I think.
And they bring them back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's nothing that's like to the winds for very long. It's like there are a lot of answered questions. There's a lot of setups and payoffs, and that's what you need. That's what I keep telling people. I'm like, you know, when you set something up, you have to pay it off. Give me that Chekhov's gun and then fucking blow it. Like,
there you go.
Show it to me. And unfortunately, a lot of times that doesn't always happen.
Cough, cough, so, American Horror Story, cough, cough.
Oh, God. Don't even get me started.
Which is weird, because, like, between... I think I tweeted something out, like, a week ago, like, between American Horror Story and Chucky, I think Chucky does camp much better.
Oh, a million times better. And I really liked American Horror Story. There was a lot of...
Same here.
I loved Coven. I loved the first season. I hated the second season. So bad. I hated it so bad.
Which is weird, because Asylum is, like, my favorite season.
Really?
Yeah, so what does that say about me?
I know. We're going to have a throwdown, is what that says.
That sounds like a plan.
But, yeah, so... good show. I'm going to keep watching. We'll see what happens.
Well, Brannyk, I want to thank you for jumping on here. This has been just such a fun conversation, and I'm glad to have you on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, do you have anything you would like to plug before we wrap up here?
I would just plug, like I said, there's a lot of great queer content creators that are out there. I just threw out Brother Ghoulish because he's one of the ones that I listen to, and he has a lot of stories that he also writes, and he's just funny and insightful. So go check him out. He's also on Twitter, I believe at Brother Ghoulish, and I think you can find him at brotherghoulish.com.
And what sort of stuff are you doing on HauntedMTL currently beyond the podcast? Do you have a certain series of reviews that you're doing, or?
I do. Like I said, I do the podcast. Unfortunately, I'm out of commission right now.
That's true. You are currently out of commission.
I am out of commission. I hope to be back, hopefully December and January. I have a lot of stuff that's in the works.
Excellent.
A lot of old, crappy movies that I've watched, and I am just dying to tell people about, including Faces of Death, which... is the first time that I've watched it because I've always been afraid of it, and boy, howdy, I should have never been afraid.
Oh, that sounds like that's going to be a lot of fun.
It was a lot different than I thought it was going to be.
Well, I really appreciate you being on. Thank you so much. You've been a wonderful guest, and I want to have you on again. Maybe for like a one-off mini episode or something, like... maybe for a larger conversation on the queer aspect of the franchise. I think just kind of like diving deep into it would be very interesting.
Okay. Yeah, keep me posted.
Alrighty. Well, then that has been Kids of Stuff, a Chucky podcast. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week. You have been listening to Kids' Stuff, a Chucky podcast, a HauntedMTL original podcast. Our theme is Pop Goes the Weasel by Kevin MacLeod. You can find more of Kevin MacLeod's music at incompetech.filmmusic.io. If you want to find out more about me, the podcaster, you can just go to hpkomics.com, hpcomics.com, or you can find me on the socials at hpkomic. For more great horror content, do not forget to visit HauntedMTL.com.